Right everyone, it is Finn here and welcome to my Euro 2024 qualifier predictions for round 1, where of course the Euros do start next year, so it is just about time that the qualifiers begin. And of course with that, so are my predictions.
Yeah, baby!
Now of course, as much as I would like to do my normal talking a lot thing, we do have quite a few games to cover in round 1 and a lot of teams to talk about. So of course, without wasting any more time of me just waffling about, let's jump into game number 1 of Kazakhstan versus Slovenia. Now looking at Kazakhstan, comparing them in the Nations League last season, or last year should I say, they did really well, doing well to top their group.
Great success.
Looking at Slovenia, although they didn't do as well in the Nations League last year, they are a division higher, and as we know, they've got some real talent. I mean, they do have arguably one of the best goalkeepers in the world with Jan Oblak, but of course the big question is, can he Jan Oblak the likes of Kazakhstan?
You have lost the fans tonight.
You know what, at the end of the day, I do feel like this game could be tremendously close, and that is why I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. Looking at game number 2, we do have the likes of Slovakia versus Luxembourg, which I'm going to give Slovakia a 2-0 win here. We obviously saw them in the recent Euros. They didn't do too bad about a year or two ago. It was just the fact that Dubravka ended up obviously making a horrific mistake versus Spain. But other than that, they do have top quality talent. As I said, they've got the likes of Dubravka, they've got Skriniar. They really do have talent throughout, and that should carry them versus a team like Luxembourg. Now, of course, heading into game number 3, arguably one of the biggest of round 1 of the Euro qualifiers, as it is, should I say, Italy versus England.
I will have my revenge!
I mean, England would so badly want their revenge here. As you know, in the Nations League last year, they didn't beat them in any of their 2 games, saying that England did forget how to score goals for some reason in Nations League last year. And of course, in the Euro final last time around, Italy ended up beating England. So of course, this would leave a real sour patch for England. And the big question is, can they finally get their revenge? Well, obviously, Italy would want to prove a point after not qualifying for the recent World Cup. And this could be a gigantic game of football here. And you know what? Because I think it will be so tremendously close, I for some reason think England are going to take it.
Don't give me hope.
Look, it's just a gut feeling I have for some reason. I don't really have any real explanation behind it. It's kind of how I've got a gut feeling that somehow they're going to manage Harry Maguire into the starting 11. Once again, you don't have to know football too well to know that Gareth Southgate has a soft spot for Harry Maguire, and he will put him in there somewhere. Once again, guys, don't forget, if you disagree with any of my predictions, make sure to put your predictions down below. As I said, we've got a lot of games, so you don't have to predict every single game with me. Just your favorite games or the team that you support down below. But of course, jumping into our next game, talking about supporting a team, this is a team that absolutely everyone loves, with Denmark versus Finland. Now, once again, I have to give Denmark a very strong 2-0 win here, because looking at Finland, although yes, they've got some decent players, they've only really qualified for one major tournament in their time. We're looking at Denmark, tournaments in and tournaments out, they've done a very solid job, even without Christian Eriksen due to injury. I mean, this is a team that plays very well. As a team, they really do well together, and versus Finland, I see absolutely no problem. Now, jumping into Portugal versus Liechtenstein, I mean, the fact that Ronaldo and Pepe are on the squad as the captain and vice-captain, and have a combined age of almost 80 years old. I mean, that's old enough to manage Crystal Palace.
You know, let's not take the piss here.
It is very impressive. Looking at Portugal, I don't think they should have any problems versus Liechtenstein, and I do think they should manage to pick up a 3-0 win over a team that, let's be honest, just isn't anywhere near the same level. Now, jumping into our next game, we've got the worst ranked nation in FIFA ranking with San Marino versus Northern Ireland. Now, of course, looking at Northern Ireland, they're not necessarily a spectacular footballing nation, but they have their moments where they can do very well. And versus, as I said, the lowest ranked nation in the entire world, San Marino, I have to give them a 1-0 win. I mean, San Marino has never won a professional game of football. In fact, they've only won once in their history, and it was a friendly. So, once again, my hopes for them, just like my parents and me when I left high school, they're not very high.
He's out of line, but he's right.
But of course, jumping into our next game, we have North Macedonia versus Malta, which once again, it is a game that could potentially go either way. I kind of like this Malta team, but we've seen a lot more from North Macedonia over the last few years. Although a lot of their better players have gotten a bit older, some have retired, I do still back them to pick up a 1-0 win. Heading into our next game, we have the likes of Bosnia versus Iceland, which I do feel sorry for Iceland. They haven't really picked up momentum since the 2016 Euros. And looking at the likes of Bosnia, they've still got some top quality players. I mean, even players like Dzeko at his ripe old age is still doing a very, very solid job. As much as I like this Iceland team, and as much as I do want them to end up doing well, I do think realistically Bosnia just are the better team, and they should pick up a 2-1 win. Now, moving on to our next set of game, we do... Oh no, what did I click on? Bulgaria versus Montenegro is next. Now, of course, looking at Bulgaria, I was shocked to see that they've only conceded 1 goal in their last 5 games, and having a defensive record like that is very, very solid. Where, of course, you look at a nation like Montenegro, which they're not a bad footballing nation, but in terms of form, they definitely go up and down. So versus a team like Bulgaria, who are very good defensively at the moment, I'm going to give Bulgaria a 1-0 win. Now, jumping into our next team or next set of games, we've got Gibraltar versus Greece, which I do feel sorry for Greece, considering they used to be one of the best footballing nations in the world. Now, the only thing greasy about them is the diet of their fans after stress eating for so many years.
Ooh, you're hard, showing off.
Saying that though, versus Gibraltar, I definitely do think that they are the stronger team. I think Greece have had some very impressive results over the last 12 months, especially compared to Gibraltar, which is why I'm going to give Greece a 1-0 win. Jumping into our next game, being Moldova versus Faroe Islands. Once again, this is a game that could be very, very close. I'm not quite sure which side of the fence I end up sitting on this one, but I do think I am going to give Faroe Islands a 1-0 win here. The only thing that kind of sways me towards Faroe Islands is that win over Turkey last year. But once again, it is a game that could go either way, but I will go for Faroe Islands. Now jumping into our next game, we have Serbia versus Lithuania, which it just has to be Serbia, and it has to be at least a 3-0 win. Look, I know Serbia didn't do nearly as well in the recent World Cup as people thought that they would, but they're still a star-studded team that almost knocked Portugal out of the World Cup. Once again, looking at Serbia, the talent throughout from defense to attack, you cannot underestimate their ability, and I think they could dominate a game like this. Much like our next game, having Austria and Azerbaijan, once again, I think Austria should dominate it with a 2-0 win. Once again, they do have Ralf Rangnick, former Manchester United manager, in charge, which, as a Manchester United fan, all I have to say to Austria is, I know you've rode quite a good wave with Ralf Rangnick so far, but wait, you'll see, he could have a tipping point every now and then. You're never too safe with Ralf Rangnick. But versus Azerbaijan, I do think Austria by far have a better team. I mean, from Arnautovic to, once again, Alaba, I mean, I don't have to name all the star players in this Austrian team, but they should beat the likes of Azerbaijan with a 2-0 win. Now jumping into our next game, it's quite an interesting one with Sweden versus Belgium. As we know, Belgium have a brand new manager in charge after years and years and years of Martinez being in charge, so we're not too sure what to expect from them. Of course, we've also had one or two of the defenders like Toby Alderweireld recently retired from them, so once again this could be a whole new backline for Belgium, and versus a very strong Swedish team who, although didn't qualify for the World Cup, as we know, they've got Alexander Isak up front. Once again, Lindelof seems to do well when he does play for Sweden, and one or two other players throughout the squad. Kulusevski, once again, the names go on. I think Belgium have potential to struggle here, but saying that, once again, looking at names like KDB, Courtois, and so many others, I'm not too sure which way to lean, which is why I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw. Once again, could be a tremendously exciting game. We'll have to wait and see. Next up, once again, talking about exciting games, we've got the Czech Republic versus Poland, which, once again, last time I checked, the Czech Republic had a very decent team.
This is great banter.
But once again, lots of their players aren't in form at the moment. Souček not as good as he was a year or two ago. Looking at Patrick Schick, although he was an absolute beast of a striker a few years ago, although, yes, he is returning from an injury, only 3 goals in his last 14 Bundesliga games. Not that convincing up front, especially considering Poland haven't looked bad as of late in the World Cup. They definitely had their shining moments, which is why I'm going to give Poland a 1-0 win. Now, jumping into our next game. Now, I'm going to say this. This might be the game to watch this match week with France versus Netherlands.
Shut up and take my money.
Of course, Hugo Lloris did retire from France, so their brand new captain has been named as Kylian Mbappe, which apparently Antoine Griezmann isn't too happy about, which, I mean, Griezmann may be in a World Cup final next time, don't end up doing a Fortnite dance, but at the end of the day, I still think this France national team is filled with so much quality. Saying that, Ronald Koeman is now back in charge of this Netherlands national team, and he did a really solid job with them last time round. I mean, I really like this Netherlands national team, and they have so much quality throughout. I feel like this could be an incredibly close close game. As I said, maybe one of the games to watch, which is why I'm going to put it down as a 2-2 draw. Once again, absolute fire game. Let me know your predictions down below. Next up, we do have Scotland versus Cyprus though, which once again, Scotland in terms of the major stages, although they haven't done super well in recent tournaments, I definitely do think they are a better team than Cyprus, which once again is why I have to give them a 2-0 win. Once again, a lot of quality. It all just depends on how they play well as a team. Next up, we do have Israel versus Kosovo, which once again, another incredibly close game. And a game that I do have to put down as a draw, as a 1-1 draw. Once again, both teams very, very similar. On their day can be very, very good, but also on their day can be very, very bad. Can't really split the difference, but I can split the points. Next up, we do have Armenia versus Turkey, which although I do like the likes of Mkhitaryan, Turkey definitely ain't no chicken, which is why I do have to give them a 2-1 win. Once again, another team that also didn't necessarily live up to expectations in the previous Euros, but is a team with so much quality. They have some brilliant youngsters in their squad, some brilliant veterans as well, and they should get the points. Talking about once again getting points, we have Switzerland versus Belarus next, which looking at Switzerland, as long as their defense isn't, well, Swiss cheese with all the holes at the back, they should also do a solid job here. Once again given a tremendously difficult group in the World Cup 2022, but versus Belarus there should be no complaints here and they should at least get a 3-0 win. I mean, from defense all the way to attack, they are star-studded and definitely I would say almost a golden generation of Swiss football. I mean, from Mbolo up front, you've got Shaqiri, you've got Jan Sommer, you've got Alvedi, Akanji, the list goes on of star players and they should do a lot better than what they've recently done. Now, next up, we do have Spain versus Norway, which I was so close. I mean, literally this close to giving Norway a win here. Now, I know that's a surprise, but the fact is that Spain over the years have dropped points versus weird teams, and looking at Norway, having Erling Haaland up front is an absolute difference maker. But of course, Erling Haaland has picked up an injury. And although Norway still has stars absolutely everywhere in their team, mostly obviously Martin Odegaard, I do think losing Erling Haaland is a major loss, and that is why I'm going to give Spain a 2-1 win. Once again, another national team with a brand new manager, and we're going to have to see how they cope over the next week or two. Now, jumping into our second last game, we have Croatia versus Wales. Now, initially I did think this could be an incredibly close game, but then I remembered all of a sudden that Gareth Bale doesn't play football anymore. And of course, saying that, I mean, he really was the only saving grace in this current Wales team. I mean, look, don't get me wrong, they do have strong players throughout, but Gareth Bale is definitely the player that carried them to tournaments. And without a player like Gareth Bale, I do think Croatia, the recent semi-finalists of the recent World Cup, and of course the finalists of the previous World Cup, are the favorites here, and they should get, I'm going to put forward a 2-0 win. Now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, that takes us to our final game of round 1 of our Euro 2024 qualifiers with Andorra versus Romania. Now, of course, it's not the most exciting end to a video, but I'm going to give this one to Romania with a 1-0 win. Once again, Romania kind of just have a stronger footballing history. They've done relatively better than Andorra in recent Nations League games, and yeah, other than that, I don't have too much to say. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for my Euro 2024 qualifier round 1 predictions. As I said, that was a lot of games to cover, and of course, if you guys stuck to the end of the video, I do appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe down below, as once again, it shows me that you do enjoy this kind of content and you would like to see more of it, along with hitting the like button down below. Let's see if we can do that. But of course, guys, this has been Finn, FYNN. I'll see you for the next round of predictions. Cheers.